I love thought experiments, especially the ones that rock my learner boat, or sometimes even take my oars away altogether. The surprise that comes with not knowing exactly what is next, that is one of the sweetest moments of learner reboot for me. One of my all-time faves happened back in Teachers College. Evelyn, my special education professor, threw down a crazy bit of thought fuel in the middle of her lesson. She directed us to look at a simple piece of text on a poster at the back of the room. Some students were rattled by the words on the page, and some by the surprising complexity of the task. I was in the last category, and in retrospect, her switch-up was necessary. It was a pants kick to shake us out of our sleepy confidence. Her prompt was triggered by our thin conversation on building literacy skills and the work that still needed to be done to support identified students. She suggested that we had to exist in the unseen spaces, pushing the hidden limits of the classroom, ignoring the sheer vertical climbs, and to get uncomfortable there. Few of us had the pedagogical chops to rise to the occasion, but we were accustomed to her challenges in this safe space. She bumped into us like this often. I had a sudden sense of motion and connection and explosion all at the same time. The class was now possessed not only with the implications of the task on literacy, but one or two people looked forward through the lens of their own toolkit and asked, "What am I missing here?" With no clear path forward and no steady spaces to rest on this topic, the class felt cracked wide open. The conversation triggered everybody in the class, and the iterations started to pop and play out in varying degrees of discovery. The energy was intoxicating, and the lesson became pretty much invisible. Despite the many comedic takes on the prompt, everyone played with the same statement, trying to decodify it or make it simpler. The chatter and the play felt untethered until a few students descended from 30,000 feet and noticed that the instructor had sat back down at her desk. She looked up and simply asked, "What just happened?" Then added, "What happens next?" The elegance of her provocation lit up the group once more. Some pulled apart the original prompt. Some began furiously writing notes as if the next test would demand this content. I also wondered if Evelyn was playing with us, and if she was, why? It was cool and confusing. I felt afloat in a new paradigm. I had not met differentiation or popcorning or Barry Bennett yet. Her approach was entirely alien to me. Was I overthinking this? Evelyn used a quote from Sonia Parker to consolidate the lesson. Whatever you focus your attention on will become important to you, even if it's unimportant. My simple realization was that I have learner tools that others may not. And in that moment, I knew what should happen next. I needed to find the hidden spaces and settle in the ambiguity of not easily recognizing learning at a first encounter. 10 years after my faculty training, Evelyn's game came back to me. It happened in period 5 on a Friday during a careers course. A Polish proverb describes it best. A guest sees more in an hour than the host in a year. Recently, I had an experience that returned me to guest status in my own class. The students were distracted, probably bored. We had made it through the on-ramp of the course, and now in the midsection of the semester, they started to investigate possible post-secondary pathways. And I had not really put the good stuff in like I should have. Watching for moments like this now has become my obsession. But back in the day, I wasn't so good at noticing. It seemed like we were nearing the end of the period, but a quick reality check revealed that there was still a half period left. I had a sudden blast of inspiration, so I asked, "Are you future-proof?" I'm pretty sure that every kid had the exact same look my faculty class had almost a decade ago, except that one moment of focus fell back into apathy within seconds. It wasn't enough. It had no hooks. It was far too far away. So I brought it closer. Is teaching future-proof? Will school look exactly the same to your kids as it does now? There was an audible shift in the energy of the room. Cogs started to click, convos ignited, and a wee spark burst forth. I started to watch for the point I could sit down and let the momentum of the prompt take over. I wanted to pull an Evelyn. Within the whole student discussion, salient points popped up about standardized tests and use of EdTech and crappy Wi-Fi, and why can't I just leave school and go to work type questions. I wondered how long they had been holding back these thoughts, and I cringed for not engaging them in this activity way sooner. I think that school as an operating system craves organization, but a little resistance to allowing this to overwhelm the small moments in the day bears great rewards. Of course, a passerby stopped, leaned in, and then moved on, and this may be the true trap of being a guest that leaves too quickly, a guest that doesn't sit and stay and observe. The other trap could be resting too long in the comfort zone. I would offer that for me, it is more in the not knowing that we come together as learners. Sometimes as a teacher, I have forgotten to get out of the way of the students and remove myself as a beacon to follow. In the preface for the book, The Reason I Jump, David Mitchell shares a brilliant observation on the delicacy of learning. He says that sentience is not built all at once, but in one brick at a time. Evelyn would have loved that idea. She may have even added, "and what holds the bricks together?" For now, she still has me wondering, what happens next?
Hi, everyone. So excited to be part of the Ignite Talks. I am doing my topic on student voice and assessment and evaluation. I'm a secondary teacher in the English department at Aurora High School. And what a great opportunity and idea to be able to learn and share together, especially in the comfort of my own home in my pajamas. So let's get started. In my class, there's a lot of conferencing that's always happening, and this allows me to ensure that students can be their most successful, and I'm able to gather qualitative and quantitative data, which again leads to helping students achieve the best possible results. I'm very mindful of the difference between feedback and advice and understanding what the student needs and really differentiating between those two terms. I document all my conferences, dates, times, what was said, feedback given, and I encourage students to take risks and really trust in the process and conference often with me. And part of the thinking of the rubric, I started to think, was I really honoring and capturing the process work that happens after class time? And I didn't think that I was. And so I always do personal goals with my students pre the assignment and post the assignment. And it was during these post conferences that I realized there was so much more to be learned about their process work, which I couldn't capture in the thinking mark. And so I had my light bulb moment at this point in time where I realized I need to afford them a wider opportunity to share their voice and their process. And so I only gave them feedback, and they came with their own rubric, with their own marks, and we sat down and we co-marked, and we discussed the discrepancies and whether we were close in our marking range or further apart, and had really valuable conversations and honored their voice. The students were concerned as to whether I was playing a mind game and where was there a loophole? Could they, beat me, get a higher mark? And they soon learned that this was a really genuine process, and I honored their mark if it was the higher mark by a couple of percent. It didn't really matter. And so when I asked students what they thought of this process, this is exactly the quote from one of my students, which just totally blew me away. They never had an opportunity to partake in the process so thoroughly from start to finish. And this excited me and the student and the journey we were on together. That being said, during the process, students became very emotional and for various reasons. And this was in front of the class, even though I tried to have it privately at my desk. And I was in the portable, so we couldn't really step out and do hallway conferences. Was there another way? And then I discovered the app Flipgrid, and I thought this was a fantastic alternative to face conferencing and definitely worth the try. And this is what I found when we applied this in class. So, one of the student concerns was, believe it or not, that they were too nervous about posting their face. And so we had a solution, which was they could put up a meme, they could point to their papers, they really didn't need to show their face. And the second was, what evidence did they show? And so I was very specific in my prompts, like a 3-2-1, so that they could answer the question very specifically. Now, the question becomes, do we need to incorporate student voice in every assignment? Ooh, I want to say yes, for sure. But it's what's manageable to you. And every assignment's different, and every assessment's different. You could do for, as, of, all of the above, totally up to you. And I will say it's worth it. It really allowed to build a relationship and to become partners in this learning journey. And students never once took advantage of this opportunity. Also, in my class, students know that if they have taken a risk, conference, done all the right things, and still received the mark that they didn't quite like, they have an opportunity to resubmit. That's when the real learning happens. I also noticed a big difference in mental health and wellness, especially if my grade 12 students who really, really welcomed this opportunity. Thank you so much.
Hi, and welcome to Girls Get IT here at Wired DSB EdTech Camp on Air. Really excited to have you with me. My name is Don Kemball. I've been with the board for almost 15 years in a variety of roles and capacities across the board, most recently in numeracy and technology lead roles, as well as in outdoor education. In all that time, I've had a lot of opportunities to work with students outside of the classroom. And I was always really amazed with the results. I found that when working in technology-related pieces like coding or robotics, AV clubs, etc., it was always the boys that were getting involved. In fact, I never had more than a girl or two getting into these activities with us. I've always felt that it's really important that girls see themselves in the roles that they want to get involved in. And being a male, I understood why so many boys were involved, and I thought it was really important to see more girls getting into these roles. I decided to do a bit of research, and I discovered that 70% of females, fully qualified females, had never even considered applying for a technology-related job. In fact, 37% of women don't feel they have the skills necessary for today's job market. And that really scares me. These are my two girls. The big one is 4, the little one is 2, and they love technology. They love playing with iPads and other devices, and they especially love their technology toys. In fact, it all started when Grandma bought them this really neat device called a caterpillar. This little thing works by interchanging the back sections, which dictate how the front moves. It will play sounds, it'll go around corners, it'll pause, does all sorts of neat little tricks. Pair this with a neat mat like this, or even the discs that come with it and a couple of knockdown pieces of furniture, and you get a great little toy. In fact, this thing is running around my house all the time. It's kind of scary sometimes that you don't want to trip over it when it's going. If my girls are so interested in this, I started thinking, why don't I see more of my students getting involved in technology? I decided what I needed to do was ask them. So I went and talked to my girls. I asked them if they would have interest in getting involved in a girls-only technology club. I had a project in mind, but I wanted to see if they'd be interested. I expected maybe 4 or 5 might join on. In the end, 20 of them decided they wanted to take part. I was blown away. The first thing I did was ask them about various pieces. I wanted to know about their role models, the things they were interested in, and what they wanted to accomplish. I was really shocked with some of the results that I received. In fact, I found that half of the girls did not have a female role model at all. And that kind of scared me. I mean, growing up, there were no shortage of men that I could look up to. It's been a really big part of unpacking my own privilege and realizing that it's a lot easier to achieve when there are incredible people out there every day who look just like you, doing incredible things. In the arts, science, technology, sports, it's never hard to find a white guy doing something. So I asked the girls again, those of you that do have role models, how many of those role models are working in technology-related fields? Not one of them could say they had a role model in tech. I mean, wait, what? Not one? Think about it for a second. Other than the incredible women involved in this EdTech Camp on Air and the other such pieces, can you think of one woman who has made a name for herself in technology? Yeah, neither can I. So I asked my girls, is it important for girls to have opportunities to try these skills? I know I think it is, but did they? And yes, they do. They think that they need to see themselves trying these pieces so that they know if they have the inclination for it and if they want to take it on as a job. Using a neat tweet that I came across, I decided to give them the activity of creating an app for our school. The app is web-based and uses Google Slides. It's a dynamic slide deck. So by clicking on a picture on the first page, they're able to travel to a subpage with information about what they want to know. It's a really neat piece. It's a green tool here in York Region, which means all the kids have access to it and they can use it as much as they want. Each of the subpages has information that the girls decided was important to their peers and to their community. Each of these subpages then has a button that links back to the home page, and it ends up feeling just like a real app. In fact, it's very similar to the app that York Region developed for its community. In the end, getting girls involved in technology is really as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find the girls, Give them the tools and let them show you the way. Thank you very much.
To ignite, it takes a spark, a passion to guide you, a drive to push you, a goal to call your own. But for that spark to catch, you have to move yourself from motivate to initiate. In order to innovate, you must create. It's a process much more easily stated than accomplished, that's for sure. Creation means taking risks, facing obstacles, facing potential failure time and time again. After all, it's never been done before, right? So where do you start? To start, you must find that one true thing, that force that unleashes your creativity. You must find your passion. My passion? That's easy. My passion is creating positive change. That's why in 2016, when our Modern Learning team launched the Student-Directed Learning Project, Agents of Change, I knew that this project was for me. Agents of Change is a student-directed learning project which asks teachers to act as inspirational facilitators to support and guide students as they create action projects that have a real-world impact. It was inspirational for our students. This project asked them to start by finding their passion. They needed to take their passion, pair it with an action and a purpose, and create real-world change in their community. It started with just 2 classes and grew to 3 grade teams in 2 years. It inspired our students to become change makers. That's not to say the project was always easy. There were many obstacles. Students at first struggled to find their passion or find a way to use their passion to improve their world. After months of idea generation and interest exploration, students created some wonderful initiatives. Projects included sports intramurals, dance classes, art classes focused on emotional catharsis, eco-blogs with challenges, social experimentation around meditation, minimalism, veganism, and the isolating impact of technology. Some students even shared their projects at a regional forum by performing TED Talks. Salma, Shira, and Eileen each shared talks which expressed how these projects helped their peers better understand poverty, the value of clean water, and the unifying power of sports. The impact on our school community was noticeable. After engaging with this project, our students became stronger leaders and better problem solvers. They were so excited to share their learning with their peers. It was a real social activism movement. They were also more willing to ask for and apply specific feedback to their ideas. Teachers were actually the facilitators, helping students plan their ideas and draft their plans so that they could have the impact that they so greatly sought. It was a success. But there was a desire for this success to reach beyond school walls. So with the help of curriculum coordinator Lori Rice, we put together a community action workshop which helped pair students with external mentors that shared their project goals. This added authenticity added such impact to the project, but it was hard to manage. With so many different causes to pursue, it was hard to ensure that every individual student was paired with an appropriate mentor. I needed a solution. I began to think how wonderful it would be if we could unite an entire class to use their collective talents towards the completion of a social activism goal. But which goal? How would we choose? Then it dawned on me. There was a cause that students likely wouldn't stumble across on their own because of years of surrounding silence. A local cause, a national cause, one that presented a pressing need. I contacted our board's FNMI team to see how we could use our project this year to help raise awareness about reconciliation. I was paired with the FN Caring Society, an organization which strives to improve the lives of Canadian First Nations youth. Jennifer King from the organization generously offered to host a webinar for intermediate students, something they had never done before. The goal of this was to present the students with the organization's needs so that they could brainstorm and ideate ways that they could actually impact change. Consultant Tawana Brooks and métier artist Natalie Bertin came in to help guide our students through the culturally respectful first steps of their idea generation process. It was a wonderfully motivating and engaging experience for students. As a result, they felt heard and they felt valued. They were so ready to embrace working together and using their collective talents to create something truly beautiful. Ideas range from video games to poetry, art displays to dances. We are so excited to see where this project will lead. But No matter where it leads, we know the journey will be triumphant because it is driven by passion. Passion for exploration, passion for learning, passion for compassionately helping others. And passion, after all, is what changes the world. Thank you.
There's a saying when it comes to photography that you shouldn't worry. Nah, only the first 10,000 photographs you take will be your worst. But really, the reality is that the only way you're ever going to evolve from a mediocre photographer to a great one, well, it's just to get out there, take a look around, and start snapping. Hey, that was our experience. It's not about what you see. No, really, it's how you choose to see it.
Photography means different things to different people. It's up to you to find your motivation. For us, photography has been a way to capture moments, to freeze them in time, and to create what you might call a digital diary, sparking memories and giving cause to reflect and find enjoyment.
Like the brush of the painter, the clay of the sculptor, or the pen of the writer, the camera is the tool of the photographer, whose passion it is to bring forth a vision and to share it through photographs. Quite simply, photography is a way of seeing the world. It's the ability to find the extraordinary in the most ordinary of places.
Take this photo for instance. To some, this is simply a corridor in which there is a man quietly reading his paper. But through the lens of the photographer, a wonderful story can be told. Angles and light can convey strength, mystery, and power. Perspective lines can captivate viewers' attention and direct their eyes through the story the photo tells. The purposeful placement of the subjects can raise wonder, set moods, and elicit emotion.
Let's take a look at a few of the tools that help the photographer become a storyteller. We'll start with the rule of thirds. As the photographer looks through his lens, he imagines a grid that is divided equally into thirds. Photo images are made aesthetically appealing and rather moving when the visual content is placed along the dividing lines or where the lines cross. Our eyes naturally are drawn to the focal point before they swirl outward from this point in a circular motion around the photograph, encouraging us to construct a story. Take a look at this photo. Can you see the rule of thirds at play?
Another useful tool is the horizon line. As you can see, the frame in this photo is dominated by the wide expanse, while a couple stands on the water, far from a set of wind turbines. Horizon lines are used to separate one section of an image from another, allowing the photographer to choose the focal point. Here, our eyes are naturally drawn towards the couple, and we can't help but wonder what they're observing at as they point off into the distance. Bokeh is arguably the most popular tool that photographers use to focus the viewer's eyes. Depending on the aperture being used and the distance between the objects, part of the frame will be in crisp focus, while the rest of the frame blends away into a creamy, mesmerizing blur. This technique then helps to create the mood for the photo by emphasizing a subject or a focal point, and then sparking mystery hidden within the blur.
Lighting is the most important tool that a photographer can manipulate for capturing the quintessential image. Fundamentally, cameras function by turning light information into images. The way the light hits the subject and the rest of the background can have a profound impact on the ultimate look of the image. Look at these photos. What do you notice about the position of the sun, the time of day, or how the light reflects all of the different objects and the edges in the frame? Above all, the photographer must be passionate about his craft. We found passion in photography through a choice to take risks, to find what works and to learn from what doesn't. Your photographs will not always follow a rule, but knowing the rules certainly helps to guide your thinking when setting up your photos.
Here is a favorite photo of mine, using the rule of thirds. Look as the arrow on the ground takes you on an adventure towards the car, the people, the buildings, and eventually to the Oriental Pearl Tower. What are these people heading towards?
And this is one of my favorite photos. I chose to use black and white because I thought it added to the mystique of the story, the city after dark. Using the rule of thirds, the building and the subject are off to the right. Our subject is looking up the street and gives us a horizon line. He draws our eyes into the distance, and with the light source behind me, the shadow of the bicycle cascades along the sidewalk, adding a new element of mystery to the story. Where is this place? What have been the events of the night? Where's our subject heading next, and how will he get there?
So that's it. In 5 minutes, that is our passion for photography. We hope that you have been encouraged to pick up your camera, whether it is a point and shoot, a DSLR, or a smartphone, or to just start snapping. Realize your potential for being more than simply a photo taker, but to become a storyteller who shares your interpretation of the world through the art of photography. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome to my presentation. My name is Tara, and I'm a full-time elementary school teacher. I teach in a community class for students with developmental disabilities. Recently, I completed my PhD. Today, I want to share with you some of my doctoral research. I'd like to start this presentation off with this land acknowledgement. When I was younger, I remember seeing this class photograph of my father. Imagine a 1950s classroom in Toronto. My father was the only Japanese person in the class. He visibly stood out to me and likely to others because he was from a different culture than the majority of students. It is this understanding about my father that makes me sensitive to the differences that exist within the students in my care. Often, my students experience difficulties and challenges because of things outside of their control. My doctoral research looked at the in-school team structure as a problem-solving support for students. ISTs are school-based teams comprised of various professionals who work together to support those students experiencing difficulties. These teams are often comprised of core members like the principal, vice principal, classroom teachers, special education teachers, outside professionals, the family, and students. These teams come together to support our students. Rita Pearson said, "Every child deserves a champion, an adult who will never give up on them, who understands the power of connection and insists they become the best they can possibly be." I believe that the term champion holds connotations of winners and losers, so I replaced that word with advocate. Every child deserves an advocate or a team of advocates, and that's what the IST is able to offer our students. However, it is our responsibility as educators to ensure that these structures in place are effective. To do this, I think they need to be holistic, inclusive, equitable. They can't be fractured in any way where there are holes in the processes in place. So what my research showed was that the IST structures are working in certain schools because of the people behind the structures. This includes leaders who mobilize their staff to believe in the IST as a venue for helping students. Those schools that are holding meetings weekly, bi-weekly, or as needed, demonstrated investment in the IST structure by providing the time and staffing required to utilize it. Those staff in those schools that are getting to know their learners on a deeper level are seeing that each child is unique and different, and therefore strategies and resources that work for one student may not work for another. Getting to know them is to help them learn. The IST is the current threshold between support and non-support, so it is the process and the structure that we do need to go through to get kids what they need. When the IST structure is implemented, it's important that it's offering safe spaces for students and families. It's important that the interventions are safe for our students. We need to consider also reevaluating the use of labels within schools. Sometimes the identifications the ministry and the boards provide us are so narrow. It's possible that we need to open these terms up a little bit and focus on what the kids can do rather than what they can't. Connectedness is super important because it's important to have authentic connections with team members, students, and families. This is the human dimension to structures that they sometimes lack. George Curo says, if we want meaningful change, we have to make a connection to the heart before we can make a connection to the mind. Spending time to develop relationships and building trust is crucial to moving forward as a whole. Sometimes, even with the best of intentions, we are not always supporting students in the most effective way, but we try anyways. If we try from a place of genuine care for the humans that we encounter, then we can truly move things forward. So some of my final thoughts are that I teach my father each and every day because it's hard to be different, whether it's because of race, culture, religion, or abilities. But if we can each work towards minimizing and removing any types of barriers to success and reach the whole person of every student we encounter, then perhaps these students will become their own advocates and advocates for others. So, who are you an advocate for?
Hello, my name is Helen Herrera, and welcome to my Ignite talk about supporting reluctant talkers and helping them to become purposeful communicators. When I was a drama student in high school, I marveled at my teacher's ability to transform one of my classmates from being a silent observer to an active participant. Ms. DeVeber did this by creating a safe environment where her students could evolve at their own pace and space. One student in particular stands out, Elizabeth. At the beginning of the semester, she was so reserved that she was not able to speak her name in front of the class. By the end of the course, Elizabeth found her voice and became a vibrant member of our drama class. Almost a decade later, our paths crossed again, but this time Elizabeth was sporting a high-end power suit, driving a sleek executive car, and carrying a new attitude as well. It was something out of a movie. When we stopped to catch up, she professed that she owed all her success to Ms. DeVeber and 4 years of drama class because she learned to find the courage to purposely communicate with her staff. At 25 years old, Elizabeth was already leading a startup company to success. Fast forward to today, and one of my missions as an educator is to find ways to give power to students who feel powerless to communicate their thoughts, ideas, and values because they are reluctant to speak up. When I started teaching back in 2004, the use of technology in the classroom was emerging as something new but very inaccessible. At least that was my perception about using technology, because I believed I was not tech savvy. In recent years, I've been exploring a variety of applications because they were user-friendly, and I've been successful to some extent. And I thought, okay, if I can use this for myself, maybe I can use these tools in my classroom as well. Last semester, my students were to produce a creative response to the novel 1984 by George Orwell. Since I didn't put any restrictions on what they could produce, they tapped into their strengths. One particular student, who didn't want to share with the entire class, created a digital poem instead.
Why is love forbidden? A feeling that cannot be hidden. A feeling that's inborn. Without it, we are torn. He doesn't seem to care. A man who's always aware. He sees your every move. Rebel and he'll disapprove.
As I was exploring new ways to engage my students with tech tools, I sought out the help of Jennifer Giffen, who gave me great suggestions on how to try out very simple and effective tools. One of the low-risk tools that Jennifer suggested was Padlet. This is a free online app that acts as a digital bulletin board. Here, you can open up a conversation about any topic and invite a group of people to add their thoughts in the form of a digital post-it note. During our short story unit, I used this tool after viewing a film called Elma. My topic was about how the filmmakers create the atmosphere. I was pleasantly surprised at how quickly and openly students were contributing to the conversation. What grabbed my attention right away was some of the rich questions my students were thinking about after viewing the film. What I really like about using tools like this is that students, for some reason, feel comfortable sharing despite some insecurities about spelling, grammar, or even word choice. Another digital tool I have used with great success is Today's Meet. This is a back-channel chat platform designed for teachers. I found this tool useful and engaging, particularly for my students who struggle because of language barriers or anxiety issues. After watching the documentary Misrepresentation, I wanted us to discuss further the social impact of misrepresenting groups of people. I knew that the conversation was going to be limited because I had a number of students who were reluctant talkers. At first, I was skeptical, but once I saw the magic happen on the whiteboard, I was convinced that today's meet is an excellent tool to engage those reluctant talkers into conversation. After last semester's experience of teaching this new generation of techno students, I realized that if I want to engage all my students in purposeful conversation, I need to give them options. Using digital tools is a way that I have put into practice the philosophy of differentiated learning and assessment strategies into practice. I look forward to learning about other platforms that will encourage reluctant talkers into being purposeful communicators. Thank you for listening.